We're excited to be back on the Canadian Baseball Network podcast for our college baseball coaches show. Today we're joined by three Missouri State Bears, head coach Joey Hawkins, Taeg Gollert, and Michael Yusypchuk. Guys, how's it going?
Doing good. Thanks for having us on.
Awesome. So I guess I'll start with you, Joey. I've asked other coaches this. I just find it interesting from a development standpoint. What does a fall look like at Missouri State, both from a team perspective and a player development perspective?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I brought these two guys on too, because I think they can give a different perspective than just me as the coach. But for me, from a planning perspective, it's a 6 week window in NCAA Division I rules where you can be on the field as a team. So the way we look at it is it's a good opportunity to develop and take some big strides, a good opportunity for freshmen to definitely get their feet wet at this level. But most importantly, too, you're trying to evaluate your team and guys are trying to win jobs and do all those great things. So for us, we're trying to check boxes from a team standpoint, and at the same time, we're trying to make individuals better at the same time.
Absolutely. So Tag, you've been around Missouri State, and this is your third year.
Correct. Yeah.
And Michael, you're a freshman. So I'm kind of curious to get your perspectives. How did you approach the fall, Tag? And Michael, how did you kind of come to the fall? What were your expectations coming in? Tag, maybe go first.
Yeah, I think for me, being here for 3 years, it looks a little different than my freshman year. This year, focusing on certain things that I can improve on from last year. I think last year, me and Joey talked about just on a personal level, improving certain things like my strikeout ratio and learning how to walk more. Going into the fall this year is a big more aspect on kind of focusing on walking more in scrimmages and working on that when we go into the eye pitch and we go into the cages and working on that stuff. So just pitch recognition was a huge thing for me and basically kind of putting results to the side and being more focused on the process was huge for me.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You mentioned cutting down on strikeouts being a big thing. You hear that a lot in today's game. How do you go about working on something like that?
Yeah, I think it's just like I said, pitch recognition, seeing shapes over and over again in the cages, not so worried about my swing and seeing more about curveball shape, picking up, identifying that stuff, working on a certain zone, seeing that curveball up, attacking those fastballs in the middle of the zone. So obviously, if you finish an at bat early, you can't get to two strikes. You can't strike out.
So Michael, was your first college fall. How did it go, and what kind of was there anything surprising to you, or was it kind of what you expected?
I'd say it was surprising, but at the same time, it wasn't. I knew it was gonna be a lot different than high school, and but it was like it was that like I expected that, and I came in here and it was tough, but it was good. Like it was a lot of fun, and the challenge was really fun every day. Kind of just coming in and trying to learn so much from everybody, and not just my pitching coach and my coaches every time, but just learning from older guys next to you and what they've gone through in their college experience. So it was really cool, and I learned a lot, and I grew a lot. So.
Yeah, so Joey, we get to this point of the season, you get through the fall, and now they leave essentially for roughly 6 weeks. These guys came back a little early, it sounds like. But what's your expectation for players when they go home for the holiday break to make sure that they're sharp and ready to hit the ground running when they get back?
It's a unique time in our sport. I think just us and softball are pretty much the only sports that don't get kind of that preseason camp when school's out. If you look at fall sports, soccer teams, football teams, they're back early and they're allowed to practice. We're not allowed to until school starts. So, our guys got back from Thanksgiving and they were pretty much in finals. So we're looking at about a 5 to 6 week window where essentially they're on their own. So for me as the head coach and with our coaching staff, our goal this year was to really push our guys extremely hard from post fall till Christmas break to kind of set the standard of what it needs to look like. And then from there, I think when you go through that grueling schedule that we put these guys through, Christmas break almost feels maybe a little easier, which is okay, but you've built yourself up so much you don't want to lose it, right? So you use that as some motivation and really showing them how to do it. And then obviously the other side of it is your calendar's ticking away at us getting ready to go and play a game. And obviously Tag's a guy that's been in our lineup for 2 years. He's seen it. He's excited to compete. And then you got, Yas back here as a freshman that's wants to come out and show his team what he can do and how he can help us as a freshman. So, You just got to teach guys how to be motivated when they're away from their teammates and how to work. And as a college coach, sometimes you just pray that everybody comes back all right.
For sure. So Tag, what were you doing over the break to kind of stay sharp? And I know did you come home, I'm assuming, for Christmas?
Yeah, I was back for about 3 weeks, so I left after my last exam. Basically, just it's over and over again what we do in the cages, what we do every day when we're at the field. Being able to consistently do that over and over again. I mean, you got a lot of time when you're at home, right? So honestly, a lot of the time it's more I'm actually doing more when I go home because I'm back home. I'm kind of bored. I got nothing else to do. Going to the facility, spend 5 hours there, and get my things done. I think we took a huge emphasis this fall on conditioning, like Hawk said, pushing us and really getting us into shape. So that was one of the most important things for me when I went home was really conditioning, staying in shape. So when I get back down here, I'm ready for these practices.
Yeah, Michael, what did your break look like? A lot of the
Like,
same?
yeah, very similar. I'd say like for the first bit, I was able to go down to my old high school and I got to train in their high school facility. So that was really nice. So it's pretty much the same. I'd go in, log 5, 6 hours, kind of hang out, see some old friends, but also do your stuff, get it done, kind of try to get back to school in the same shape, if not better. And then when I went home, there's some gritty days where you have to go do stuff outside or something in the cold, but had to just find a way to get it in.
Yeah, it toughens you up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joey, did you get to go home to Whitby or were you down there?
No, not this year. I usually go in the summer. So traveling with two little ones is a little easier when it's warm out versus cold with flight delays and all that. So we just laid low here. And I think it's important too for these guys to unplug a little bit. Division I baseball schedule for an athlete's, it's challenging between school and practice, lifting. It's nonstop. So, like Tag said, when you get a little break from school and your only worry is really baseball, I think it's good for them mentally.
Yeah, for sure. What's the weather like down there?
Missouri weather is very hit or miss. So like we got like the smallest dusting of snow the other day and they canceled school here. And then in like a week it'll be like 50 degrees. So you just don't know what you're gonna get. So it's hit or miss. You gotta kind of just go with the flow down here.
Yeah, you're not missing anything here. It's like -7, feels like -15. I'm sure it's even worse in Alberta right now.
Right.
So I don't think you're missing too much. So my next question, I usually ask coaches first, but since we have two players, I think I want to hear their input first. Uh, Tag, we'll start with you. What is your expectations for the upcoming season as a returner, both for yourself and the team?
Yeah, I think the big one's obviously winning, and you got to start at step one, which is winning your conference. So obviously we have huge goals, obviously as a team to get a super regional or get to a college World Series, but you can't do those things without winning your conference first, and that starts with the regular season and then going into the playoffs. We've had a huge emphasis on winning this year, like every other year. I think we got a lot of talent, both on the pitching and hitting side of things. And I think we've really shored up that defense in the fall so far. So going back out into these practices, we'll get a good feel and a good look at that. But continuing to do those things, we're in a good spot.
Do you set personal goals as far as, accolades or numbers, or are you more of a guy that just kind of goes with the flow and goes about it that way?
Yeah, I think I play my best baseball when I put team first. I've kind of experienced those things in the past when growing up in high school, and I think I've kind of learned that, when I focus on myself, like those things didn't happen too well in my season or whatever, that game didn't go too well. So when I focused on the team first and put myself in situations where I can help the team, that's when I'm best.
Yeah, so Michael, there's gonna be a lot of new experiences this year for being your first college baseball season. What are you kind of what's your outlook and what are kind of your expectations for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, being my first year in college baseball, like I don't really have much to compare our team to, but I mean, ever since I've got here, it's been very impressive, and I think we got a real good team, bunch of good locker room guys, and I can see how driven everyone is, and I'm all in on that, and I think the sky's the limit. Like we can go very far with this, and we can have a great year ahead of us. And then for myself, yeah, my goal is to just find whatever role it is that this team needs and do my best with that and try and give my team a chance to win some ball games.
Joey, first season as head coach. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. I know you're probably not thinking about it in that perspective necessarily, but what's your outlook on the season and what do you kind of expect from this team?
Yeah, I'm excited about this team. Probably one of the most hardest working group of guys I've been around. I've been in a lot of locker rooms across a lot of different levels. I think that's a good place to start. Look, I think if you're not thinking about Omaha or, being a draft pick playing in the big leagues, you're probably not a player that comes here. So I think we have guys with big aspirations. This team has big aspirations. We're excited about that. Um, you never know how close you are too when it comes to something like that. So, we got to be where our feet are. We got to work. And like Taeg said, you got to take care of conference first. And, you handle some non-conference games that can do some good things for your resume. You put yourself in a good spot. But, I think our message across this year so far has just been about the work. And if you put in the work, you'll feel prepared. If you feel prepared, you'll feel confident. And this group can be a confident group, will be pretty special.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I've looked at a lot of college baseball schedules recently. Is it Mississippi State second weekend that you
Yeah.
guys go to? So
Yeah.
that's a pretty big atmosphere. Joe, you played in some super regionals and you played in a super regional in Arkansas. You've kind of had that experience. How do you prepare your team for something like that and what they're going to see when they get down there?
I think it's kind of tricky. I'm not a huge fan of like avoiding the obvious, just saying like, oh, it's just a game, go play. Yeah, it is just baseball game. But I think you got to embrace, playing in tough environments. You got to know what's going to be in front of you. There's going to be a lot of people there. You're playing, obviously a big brand of baseball down there. They won a national championship not too long ago. But I wouldn't put them on the schedule if I didn't believe that we could compete at that level and if I didn't believe that it could help us down the stretch. So it's going to be a great opportunity for us, but we're not looking at that as a program going in saying, we're just going for the experience, right? I mean, we're going in there to compete. We expect to win, come out with a series win, and do what we're capable of. But I do think overall it's gonna do some great things for us as we go through a long season.
Time now for a mound visit, courtesy of the Baseball Zone. Today, Coach Sean Schaefer discusses the most common challenge that a high school pitcher faces.
Yeah, so my biggest thing about high school pitchers is just chasing velocity. A lot of high school, you see the major leagues and everyone's throwing mid to upper 90s into 100 miles an hour. Development isn't always on a straight line. So we need to understand that there's going to be velocity peaks, but then there's also going to be velocity valleys as well. But I think from a pitching development side of things, they need to understand that throwing strikes at a high intent is just as important as throwing hard. We know that hitters fail a lot of the time, so using the big part of the plate early on in counts will help them succeed. And know that, as much as you can use your defense behind you, understand that, sometimes mistakes can happen, but control what you can control. So if you're throwing strikes, you're doing your job, and hopefully the players behind you can do their jobs as well.
This has been a mound visit, courtesy of the Baseball Zone. Now back to the action.
Taeg, when you look back on 2023 and 2024, now going into 2025, what do you think have been your biggest strides as a player, and how did you go about taking them? Like, take us through a little bit through that process of year 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, I think when I first got in here, my first fall showing up, my swing was very underdeveloped. I struggled in the fall tremendously. Strikeout rate was real high, and I was probably one of the worst hitters coming into that after that fall. Hawk and the coaching staff we kind of reset my swing. Had to focus a lot more in the legs and in my approach. And I think from that fall to that spring, over the break was where I got my most work in, and I really made some adjustments. And me and Hawk talked over the phone when I was back home. We talked through some things, and I kind of showed up that next spring and kind of just got hot at the right time. Confidence built tremendously. Kind of just took it into the season, and I think the one thing for me was, I mean, there was always a little bit of power there, but my decision making, my kind of approach has improved tremendously over the last 2 years, and I can all credit that to Hawk and what he's taught me. But on the defensive side too, out in left field, Jeff Jimenez, our outfield coach, has this fall, especially, I'm excited to get back out in left field and really show what I can do out there. I think I've made a lot of strides out there as well this fall, and I'm kind of excited to show that this spring. So.
As a veteran now on this team, it goes by quick, doesn't it? Your college career.
Yeah, it does.
Is, are you a guy that would give advice to younger guys, say like Michael or a freshman coming in, and how do you kind of help them along and show them what Missouri State baseball is all about?
Yeah, I think for me, it's more I like to lead by example more than talk. If somebody needs it and I can see them struggling, I will say something. But I think also at the same time for younger guys and for freshmen and for guys coming in, like struggling is also a good thing. Internal competition is also a good thing. So being able to let them compete at that time and really observing that and kind of leading by example and showing them how it works by leading from example and how I go about practices is definitely the main thing that I do.
Mike, I'm going to ask this question because there's high school players, high school coaches, high school parents that listen to this. What kind of was the biggest difference for you stepping on campus? And was there one thing once you got going that you really wanted to focus on to get better and to find success at the college level?
I'd say for me, the biggest thing I found was that everyone has the ability to throw hard, throw a secondary pitch. But in order to succeed, you need to be able to do those at any time, in any count, and throw it wherever you want with confidence, even when you're behind in the count. And you have to be able to manipulate those pitches. And it's just all about confidence, in my opinion. And that's something I found when I came in here, being a freshman, is I'd say 99% of every freshman there is. I was a little nervous every time I went out on the mound, and you maybe pitch a little bit timid, and that just doesn't help you at all. And I'd say as the fall went on, some confidence grew, and every time I got more confident, my outings just became better because I was throwing all those pitches with more confidence. I felt comfortable to throw them whenever I wanted, and my results just started to get gradually a little bit better each time.
Joey, it's, I think 7 or 8 months on the job as the head guy. You were obviously under a college baseball legend previously. What's the biggest difference between being the head coach and being an associate or an assistant?
Got a little less time in my day now, that's for sure. Look, you run a college baseball program nowadays, like in a way, you have to be a CEO. You gotta be on top of fundraising money, putting on events, hiring a staff, hiring grad assistants, student managers. But then you also got to put a practice plan together. You got to coach hitters. I still coach the hitters every day, coach the infielders. You got a game plan. So it's just, for me, it was just, paying attention to my schedule every day, being comfortable saying no to some people when I don't have time and I need to focus on this team and these players. So, and that's hard, but that's part of leadership. And, I've definitely learned some things and made some mistakes, but it's been a great experience, so far. And like you said, I got to learn under G for the last 3 years, who's a college baseball legend. And I played in this program too. So, I know what it looks like. I know what winning looks like here. And, I really believe this team can be successful this year and make a great run in my first year. But probably for me, I don't care about it being my first year. You know what I mean? I just want these guys to win and have a great experience here this season.
Yeah, I think the first year, that's why I mentioned that, is I think that's something people like us focus on more than you on the field. So, since you have a coach, a position player, and a pitcher, I kind of want to go through what a day in the life of each looks like. So maybe start with you, Joey. You mentioned the busy schedule. Take us through a typical day in a college baseball season for a head coach?
Sure. So, I mean, if we just use the fall as an example. For me, I'm usually in the office around 8 or 8:30. And that's kind of where I set my to-do list for the day. And my to-do list tries to consist of 3 or 4 sections, which is going to be baseball, fundraising, recruiting, and then really anything else that falls on my plate that I can think of. And once I get that done, we typically have a staff meeting in the morning that's going to go over the plan for the day, the practice plan, any other additional deep details, team meetings. For me as a head coach, I put a big emphasis on our staff on being prepared for a meeting. So if you're going to run a team meeting, like don't just wing it, have a plan for what you're going in there. So those discussions happen. And then really between 10 and 12, a lot of office work, whether it's like recruiting calls, recruiting paperwork, putting out fires wherever I need to put them out, and maybe checking in on some academics sometimes too. That's important in this. And then from 12 o'clock on, it's going to be baseball. So, we like to run an open cage setting before practice where, it's free for our hitters to get some work in. And, I'll definitely, have my hand in there and helping guys. And then typically 2 to about 4:30, we're on the field practicing. And then for me, about 4:30 to 5 or 5:30, I'm just wrapping some things up for the day and getting ready for the next day.
For sure. So Taeg, take us through a typical day of a position player at Missouri State.
Yeah. So I mean, with us international students, we gotta be in class for 9 hours, nine credit hours. So I'm mostly in class every single day of the week. I'd say it ends at around 12 o'clock. I try and schedule my classes that way they end before 12. That way I can do everything that's on the schedule. And the schedule is your best friend. So they send it out in a week in advance, and they remind you the day before. Following that schedule, I mean, it's a game changer, right? You just got to read the schedule, show up, the hours of everything, and you basically get your work in. So, I mean, like you said, open cage when we're on the field is normally the first thing. It's about a half an hour from like 12:30 to 1 or 1 to 1:30. After that, that's basically just our routines that he's set with us, positional players. And after that, we kind of head out to the field. Defense normally happens first with throwing. And then we get some team defense in. So individual defense, then team defense. And then it's a mix of BP on the field with machine work, and then machine work in the cages as well. We got an eye pitch in there that's really a difference maker for us positional players as well. After that, we normally got to lift after that. And yeah, so after that, you go home and kind of just relax, reset for the day, get your homework in if you got much, have some dinner and hang out with some friends and play video games or do whatever.
For sure. So Michael, yeah, I'm assuming the class schedule is roughly the same, but take me through kind of a pitcher's routine and your throwing program, what practice looks like from a pitcher's perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, like Taeg said, class in the morning, kind of mix breakfast, lunch in there, and then I try and get to the field a little bit early if my class schedule allows it. Then maybe do some stuff to get my body right before practice, and then practice starts around 2. We'll go out there, do our team stretch, throw. You'll throw bullpens if you need to throw bullpens, long toss if you need a long toss, do all that stuff, your plyo work, water bags, all your mound work, and then a lot of the time we mix in some team defense, so we'll be a part of that, whether it's fly ball communication or something along those lines, and then it's something like BP, and then kind of wrap up practice there. We lift I think 4 days a week, so most practices end, and then we go lift. And then, yeah, pretty much after that, like 4:30, I would say, just head back to the dorms, eat, maybe go to the library, get some schoolwork, studying done. But yeah, that's about it.
I love how you both mentioned get some studying in. I think you both made eye contact with Joey when you said it. So as far as the throwing program in high school, did you feel well prepared for the transition into college? Because I feel like a lot of high school programs are becoming more advanced as far as the types of throwing programs they put together.
Yeah, I feel like I did. Like I was very lucky to be on a team that was like my pitching coach was very educated on that and had us very well prepared for each season, having the whole off season laid out with a certain amount of rest time, different ramp up phases and plyo drills to all get our arms right. So I came in and I'd say this off season was very similar to what I've done in previous seasons, but just the next level of it. So but I feel like I was very prepared through my high school.
Joey, you mentioned recruiting. I want to touch on specifically Canadian recruiting and what challenges have you seen over your time coaching in college of recruiting Canadians? I mean, the big one I think that I always think back to is probably the Canadian dollar and the cost, but are there other challenges to recruiting Canadians?
Yeah, The cost is the one that's probably just getting a little out of hand, not just the Canadian dollar, but just how much it is to play, travel baseball. It's the same down here too, but for a Canadian kid, you factor in just the amount of travel they're going to have to do to just come down here and get exposure. So there's a disadvantage there for sure. Again, I wish there was a way it could be more cost effective for families to get these opportunities, but I do think that's maybe where the beautiful part of junior college baseball plays in. There's a lot of good Canadians that are at JUCOs and can save some money for a couple of years. But other than that, I look in today's day and age, there's so much video and data, emails, Twitter, where you can get yourself out there pretty fast. And For me, I think flipping it, the biggest advantage that a Canadian kid could have is just having a good support system, a good coach or program to play for that has some connections. Obviously, these two guys come from two strong Canadian programs. So, if you start from the beginning of the recruitment process, like, all right, we're getting good information from coaches we trust, that matters. And then when you get them here, they've kind of been through it, right? Two guys that have, maybe played a college tour or been on the national team. So they're not as sped up as maybe just like your typical high school American kid. So there's some advantages there that I really like about recruiting a Canadian kid. I think there's a maturity factor where for our guys, they've all come in and just seemed very mature and able to hop right in and fit in at this level.
I mean, you're always obviously looking for the best players, regardless of where they come from. But how closely do you maintain those relationships to your former coaches in Canada, in Ontario and across the country? How important is that for you, being a Canadian, to maintain that and kind of use that to your advantage almost?
Look, I mean, coaching and recruiting, it's all about relationships, right? I think when you get a kid to come here, a lot of it's going to be that kid's feels comfortable with just the coaching staff and the environment around them. But yeah, I think I'd be crazy not to think that guys like this feel a little more comfortable when they have a Canadian coach who's gone through the same thing they have. Their parents feeling comfortable having a Canadian coach looking after their kid, that responsibility. So again, relationships are everything. I keep mine very tight up there. I know everybody. So if there's a good player, we're gonna find them, and we're gonna hopefully find them before anybody else does. And these two guys got very unique recruiting stories, in my opinion. I remember seeing Yus in Atlanta. He was playing about 2 hours away from my hotel, and I thought, man, I don't know if I'm gonna make that trip. But someone I trusted up in Canada was like, "You got to go watch this kid." And to his credit, he committed to us without visiting, right? So you want to talk about relationships and painting a vision for a kid. That was pretty cool. And then Taeg on the flip side, like, feel like a lot of people overlooked him. And he came down here on his college tour and played a Kansas City travel team at our yard, and just really stood out. Was the best player on the field, and we got him late. I think it was your gap year fall. And so he's less than a year away from joining our team, and just very unique opportunities, but both very relationship driven, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was actually at the Canada Summer Games, Michael. I got a ding on my phone. It was actually Joey, because you were pitching for Alberta, and he's, "How's he look?" I was like, "I'm not a talent evaluator, but he looks pretty good to me. I think you got a good one." So he does have eyes everywhere, I believe.
Everywhere.
So, Tag, I want to end for your questions on this. If looking back on your career, and obviously, hopefully, still have a long way to go, what advice would you give your younger self about going through the college process and the entire college schedule and everything that you've experienced?
Yeah, I think for me, it's kind of basically just never giving up. I think in high school, wasn't the most talented player, but always got my hours in. And I think for me, it's always putting your head down. Doesn't matter what recognition you have or what's out there on you or what college offers you have. Just continuing to work hard every single day and putting in the work that that's going to work for you is a huge thing. And I think if I had to go back and tell myself pre-college, I would say just kind of like I felt prepared when I went in, and I think that was a huge thing for me. My preparation felt good. Hawk got me an opportunity to go play in Iowa for summer ball, and I think that was a really big thing for me too, kind of growing up and maturing and living on my own and living with a host family, and facing those collegiate baseball players. So basically, just the preparation that I put in for myself is huge, and continuing to put in that preparation for myself for years down the road. I'm hoping to play this game for as long as I can. So continuing to go about it every single day, and basically gaining confidence in the preparation and the work that I do outside of the game, and doing that. Yeah.
Michael, any advice for your younger self? I know you're still early in the process, but
I'd say just never let off the gas. Like always keep putting in work because eventually it'll pay off. And once that work pays off, you're gonna need to keep putting in work because there's always another group of people that you're gonna be competing with. And if you let off the gas for a little bit, that's when you're gonna see they pass you. And like if I look all the way back to COVID, I think that's where I made my biggest strides because during that period, a lot of people kind of just stepped off the gas and just waited to see what everything was going on. Meanwhile, I was in the backyard every day training with my brother, and I think that's one of the things that got me to this point now today. But I mean, I'm still a freshman, haven't proven anything yet, so that's some motivation there to keep my foot on the gas and keep going to see what I can do.
yeah, I guess you guys both have brothers that play or played college baseball, so that's got to be a bit of a benefit. How much did that help you guys to ease the transition, so to speak? I said the last question was the last question, but I'm gonna ask this question. How did having a sibling play college baseball kind of help in your development?
Yeah, I think for me, seeing the work that he did, kind of following in his footsteps, my dad was a huge emphasis as well for me and my brother, and kind of seeing the work that he did every day, and seeing what it takes in order to play at the collegiate level, and kind of succeed, was a huge thing for me. And just knowing that, and knowing the work that he put in, and I'm putting in the same work again, like I said, builds confidence. And baseball is a confident game, and if you have a lot of confidence, you're in a good spot.
Yeah, do you have a little bit of a friendly route? You gotta get to the College World Series.
Yeah, exactly. That's the main thing. Hopefully, it's this year right here.
Yeah, Michael, what about you? How's your relationship with your brother helped you?
I know it's awesome. I mean, I've always remembered training from him from a very young age, and it's really nice. Like I got the benefit, I got the advantage in the brotherhood, I guess, because he's the older brother, so I just get to do exactly what he's doing, but from a very young age, or a 4-year younger age gap. So when he's in college baseball, I get to do some of the things that you're doing in college baseball to prepare for a season. So I got to get a sneak peek into the season that way, and I could kind of see what to expect, and it kind of let me in and yeah, know what to expect when I was coming here.
Joey, I'm ending with this question because I'm trying to sneak this question into every college coach I talk to. Your opinion on the state of NCAA athletics? It's pretty. There's a lot going on. Whether it's the JUCO eligibility, whether it's NIL, maybe not so much for baseball, the transfer portal. What are your thoughts on some of these things? The transfer portal in particular.
There's pros and cons to everything. I think as a college baseball coach, if you want to be competitive, your biggest enemy is the unwillingness to adapt, right? So I think we went through a phase in baseball where like maybe some coaches didn't want to adapt to using technology or analytics, and they got passed up, right? And they started losing games or losing recruits. If you're not looking at every area of recruiting and figuring out how it can make your program better, like you're going to fall behind. And so for us, we have a philosophy, right? We build this program around bringing in young high school talent and developing them. And that's just proof is in the pudding, right? You go look at our core this year of older players. They've all been here for 3 years, right? They've developed together. We put in time. Like Taeg said, he was one of the worst hitters his freshman fall, right? That's the beauty of the game. Now, we've also added some kids from the transfer portal that are going to be some big pieces for us this year. And, part of that's dealing with the draft, right? You lose a player, you got to add a player. Some guys leave. Sometimes it's not a good fit. Sometimes you got to be honest with the kid. Hey, we don't think you're going to play here very much. That's why the transfer portal is great, right? Kids get an opportunity to go play right away somewhere else. No, I understand there's some negatives to it, right? There's tampering, there's things behind the scenes, there's some rosters are just straight transfer portal teams. Yeah, I don't love that, but you know what? There's no rules that say you have to do it one way. And I think that's what makes college baseball fun. You get to have your own plan, your own philosophy, and you get to see who and what works. So I like how we've done it. We're in a great spot with how we're trending in terms of these next few years with our young talent, but most importantly, our talent this year as well.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch. And I think it's safe to say Missouri State is a must watch for any Canadian college baseball fan. I appreciate you three guys coming on, and I'll be watching closely for sure. And best of luck this year.
Hey, can you get us on Sportsnet or TSN this year? How's that work?
Listen, I've been
We
on
need
that.
some more college baseball up there.
I've been on that train for a long time. I don't have that kind of sway, so I don't know. I'll keep working on it. But there was a little bit. The College World Series was on like TSN 3 or something, a couple games. So it's
All right.
slowly, it's coming. It's coming. I don't know.
All right. Well, we got a lot of us down here, so
I know.
we're
I
worth
know.
covering.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
All right. Well, we appreciate you having us on.
Thanks, guys. It was great to get a couple players on this coach's show with their coach and see kind of how they interact and their different expectations for themselves and the team, Jackson.
It's interesting the way that this transfer portal stuff has been talked about, right? And about how, some people are super, for it, and some people are somewhat like, I kind of like the way things were. I thought Joey's answer there was interesting. He was kind of like, well, some parts of it, obviously you'd like to be better, but overall it's working well. It gives guys opportunities. I think that's the way a lot of people feel. I like when you ask them too about their older brothers. I think like it's a common thing in sports. Is like following in the footsteps, but you don't often hear from like the younger brother as to like, what specifically are you doing? Like, are you following in their footsteps? Are you doing everything they did? Like I do think it's easy to be like, well, they're brothers, so of course they were going to be successful. But I do like hearing like everyone's got their own journey, right, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought it was really interesting. Now, 2 episodes in a row when we had Rob McCoy on, it was Charlie Takis and Taeg Gollert talking about how they really struggled their freshman years. And now they're big parts of, and Tag's been a big part for a couple of years now, but now they're both big parts of their program. So it kind of goes to show that development is never linear. You hear that a lot, but to hear it firsthand from some of these guys kind of should drive that home for high school players listening to this episode.
Yeah, and like how, like you said, how things can change. And as it relates to the transfer portal, sometimes it makes sense to go, but sometimes, if I don't know if this is the same case in baseball, certainly in football, a lot of freshmen after their freshman year, like, I'm moving on, right? Well, you might want to stick around and see what happens.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, I think Canadian college baseball fans, Missouri State is an easy one to root for. Obviously, Michael and Taeg, you just spoke to. Other Canadians, though, Joey Hawkins, Canadian head coach. He didn't want to go too far into how important that and significant that is for him in his first season, but it is for Canada and Canadians. It's something that we should be really proud of, having a Canadian head coach in college baseball. Another one. And that's it for episode 2 of our Canadian. I'm gonna separate these into our Canadian college baseball shows for the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. We have more on the go though, so make sure to check back each week leading up to college baseball season. Until then, take care.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out Canadian Baseball Network for extensive and comprehensive coverage of the latest in Canadian baseball. And the Baseball Zone, Canada's leading instructional baseball academy and training home to thousands of MLB pro, college, and youth baseball players.